Retro Warriors, episode 462. Woo! As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by Viable Human, Chris Saturn.
Hello.
Saturn, you're here.
Am I?
I don't know why I sound so shocked. We just recorded one of these moments ago.
All right.
We've been in a call together for like 2.5
Years.
hours now. It's been for, I don't know, but you're here now.
Yay.
And that's what matters. What matters is this is our time down here.
Is it Our Time like a old folks dating service?
Ourtime.com is our sponsor for the episode. This is our second episode of the night. I know that no one can tell. I know that no one can tell it's late at night. We've already been behind the microphone for hours. We're just fresh as spring
Definitely,
daisies.
yeah.
I want to talk about my week.
Okay.
So just shut up for a second
All right.
and let me talk. Jeez, Saturn. Can't get a fucking word out. I've started Ayuden Chronicle.
Yeah.
Been playing that. It's been fun.
I
Game
thought we
Pass
mentioned this last time. 'Cause
Ayuden
Guy
Chronicle?
and Andrew were around and we had mentioned that you guys were all
Yeah.
playing it.
You
Yeah.
can mention on that episode. I'm pretty fucking pissed off at Game Pass PC.
Okay. Yeah. Because it's bad.
Because yeah, I've begun having TV problems. I had to
Yeah, you
reflash the firmware because my TV bricked itself.
Mhm.
I'm on that precipice of like, I might have to buy a new TV. But it's still
TV isn't even that
technically
old.
I know I have the worst luck with TVs.
Yeah.
And it works, but my surround sound has stopped doing ARC. It's like I don't do ARC anymore.
Because ARC is terrible.
And then it'll do ARC for like a day, and then it'll be like, never mind. And you're like, why? Why never mind? Why did you stop? And it'll be like, never mind, it works again. And you're like, great. And then it's like, it doesn't work.
And the question is it the TV? Is it the sound system?
Yes.
Is it the
TV?
cables?
Is it the cable? Is the device? Is it some
Yeah.
device like ruining an HDCP handshake somewhere
Right.
along the chain? That's fucking.
Yep.
I have no idea.
It's infuriating.
And so I had lost a whole day of doing research for the previous show because my TV fucked up, and I had to spend all morning figuring out how to reflash a TV,
Right.
and then doing that. Of course, after 2 hours of just general troubleshooting.
Yeah.
And
See, I am I've got a receiver now. Instead of just a sound bar, and my receiver has 4 inputs. So I have my PS5 and my Xbox plugged in directly, and the sound works on those every time perfectly.
Yeah.
And then I have an eARC connection back to the TV for everything else, right? And that's where all of the problems are. And I eventually learned that I had to turn off eARC and just use regular ARC, and that seems to more consistently work, but still not always.
I ended up feeling frustrated that I hadn't just bought Ayuden Chronicle on Steam so I could play it on Steam Deck.
Yeah.
Because I fussed with this TV stuff, and I was like, I gotta go pick up my daughter, and I was like, if it was on deck, I could just play it in the car while I'm waiting to pick her up, and it was just kind of frustrating. And I was like, oh, well, I'll download the Game Pass PC version and then just move my save over and then buy it on Steam.
Yeah.
This is like the third time in a row that I've tried to do that maneuver where you're like, I tried a game on Game Pass on Xbox, I liked it, I'm gonna get the PC version, then move my save, it doesn't work.
How so?
Ayuden Chronicle does not put your save local on your machine that I can fucking find anywhere.
Does it
on
even
Game
support
Pass
cross-save between the console and the PC?
It does do that.
That's good. All right.
So it does see my save. I booted it up and it was like, hey, here's your save. Great. And then I go to where the save folder is supposed to be, and there is no save file.
It's probably
not
hidden in the
there.
app data somewhere.
Maybe, but fucking where? And then is it going to be the right format? And then like on PC Gaming Wiki, it says it's in this folder, but then it's not there. And I'm like, and at this point, it's one of those things where like I'm enough hours into the game that I don't want to restart, but I'm also not so far in the game that it would, I'm like 12 hours in,
Right.
But it's a pretty slow, wordy start.
So Game Pass PC stores its save files in your app data folder under packages.
I will hopefully look at it later and be able to find it. I hope. I always just go PC Gaming Wiki for that stuff because they'll list it, in their
and they
listing
do
was
on
apparently
things
wrong.
that are traditional.
Yeah. Well, it says specifically the Game Pass version of it on PC
Okay.
Gaming Wiki, and that was not the directory it was in. So I don't fucking know. It was a 505 Games directory. It was named correctly. There just was not a save file in it. It's almost like it was pulling it out of the cloud and then not actually putting it local on my machine.
Yeah.
And then like 2 days later, I was fighting with OneDrive because I was moving a large amount of files across my network, and I was like, oh, I'll just drop them on my desktop. And then OneDrive immediately backs them all up and then deletes them off my computer, and then I'm trying to sync them to a physical device, and it's like, well, you got to download them. And I'm like, why do I got to they're my files?
Yeah, I don't let OneDrive back up any of the files on my personal computer. I have a OneDrive folder so that I can access OneDrive stuff, but I don't let it back up my documents or my downloads or my desktop or any of that shit.
So
on my work computer, all of it's back up.
I turned off my desktop backup 3 times and it turned it back on. Then finally it kept it off. And now every time I log in, it's like, hey, let's set up your OneDrive backup. I'm like, no.
Yeah, I
Stop
do get that
clouding me.
message, right?
Get out of here.
Seriously.
So my week has mostly just been frustration. Lots of frustration going on in my week. What have you been up to?
So I've gone back to Balatro because I'm a masochist.
Mm-hmm.
So I am trying to go through all of the challenges. Have you played it all with the challenges?
Oh my God. You're so far beyond my Balatro world. I'm like the tribe of people that you find in like the jungle that hasn't had human contact for 100 years, and you're like, this is a cell phone and fucking airplanes, and I'm like, what? Like, that's how I feel every time you talk to me about Balatro.
So the challenge modes in Balatro, there's 20 challenges, and I think it starts with just 3 of them when you unlock them, and then you have to finish existing ones to unlock new ones.
Okay.
And so I've got them all unlocked, but I'm at the last 3 that I'm trying to actually play through. And the third to last one is called Golden Needle, and it is so infuriating.
Mm-hmm.
So you're given 6 discards instead of the normal 3. You start the game with the debit card that lets you go into debt.
Yes.
And you start the game with, I want to say it's $8 or $10, something like that.
Uh-huh.
But you only have 1 hand per round.
Oh.
All of the jokers that would give you more hands are disabled and cannot be found. And the every discard costs $1.
God damn.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this to yourself?
It's so hard.
Why?
It's so hard. I've been trying every possible strategy I can think of to get around this. And so far, the best strategy I found is to just really boost the value of high card and get that 1 joker that gives you a multiple if you have small hands.
Yeah.
And
the one that's like 3 or less or whatever.
Yeah. And then try to find anything that does a multiplier every round.
Yeah.
That's like X whatever to your mult. And that got me as far as ante 7 before I fucking died again, and it's so infuriating.
It sounds... I'm infuriated hearing this.
I had gotten like this perfect set of jokers. I was doing great. I had some money in the bank. Like I had like gotten around all the challenges of this, and I was like really rolling right along. And then I hit that one boss blind that's no discards.
Oh no.
Yeah. I was like,
I swear to God that Balatro specifically like looks at what you're trying to do and sets up the because like it's just a classic trading card game thing where it's like sometimes you just have bad matchups.
Yes.
And I swear it intentionally sets up bad matchups for you every time.
Yeah, it's that was a rough one. But I am still trying. I've been told that this is the hardest of the challenges, and the 2 after it are much more manageable.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking about skipping it, but I also don't want to skip it because then I won't want to go back to it.
Yeah.
So I just keep bashing my head against the wall.
Oof. Let's talk news.
Okay.
There's been some news. First up, fans are making a 16-bit style remake of Mega Man 5, specifically the Game Boy version of Mega Man 5.
Now, have you played Mega Man 5 Game Boy?
If I have, I don't remember it.
So the cool thing about Mega Man 5 on Game Boy is it has completely original Robot Masters. Because all the other Game Boy games just recycle NES Robot Masters.
It just felt like squished down regular Mega Man.
Yeah, because the first Mega Man on Game Boy was 4 from 1 and 4 from 2, and then the second one was 4 from 2, 4 from 3, and they just kept that pattern until 5. And it has completely original Robot Masters that are all named after planets. And it also has some unique gameplay elements that aren't in any of the other Mega Man games, and it has been trapped on the Game Boy for 30 years.
Oh,
and it has gotten no ports, no re-releases, nothing. So I am pretty stoked about the idea of playing a 16-bit version of this.
Yeah, always exciting to see. And thankfully, Capcom's usually pretty welcoming to fan projects like
usually,
this.
yeah.
You watch this be the one that they get pissed about, but usually, specifically Mega Man 2, they're surprisingly good about.
We'll see. The name of this fan remake is Mega Man: The Rulers of Space, which is a silly name.
That's my favorite Queen album.
Thought I would throw that out there so that people can find it.
UK government considering legislation to force game companies to support games after purchase. What a crazy idea.
Now, when this was first, when I first read the headline, I was like, oh, holy shit, this is great news. And then I looked at the actual legislation they're considering. And
is it toothless?
So it says that they must provide long-term support or an offline solution for any games that are labeled as a purchase.
What?
Which just leaves the loophole of, well, we just won't call it a purchase. We'll call it a long-term license.
Why, UK? You get like 90% of the way there, and then you're just like, I don't know, let's be dumb now.
And then they just tripped and fell over themselves.
God, I mean, it's better than what we do over here.
Right, which is nothing.
Yeah, which is just like, fuck the kids. Like, what do we care? But
makes me think of the Grapist.
We're not going there. Not going there at all. No, it's good to see. You like to see it, but it's frustrating that it has that obvious
almost
loophole.
there.
Almost like it was put there on purpose.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sony fuckered, that's what it says. Sony fuckered the Steam version of Helldivers 2 before I was like, there's no way this is fuckered right in the news.
I figured that was
backtracking.
I felt that was the easiest way to sum this up.
I think it's an appropriate word here. Yeah. They done fuckered it.
They done fuckered it.
So when Helldivers 2 came out, it required PSN login on.
When it came out, it did not require it for like a month.
I bought it day one. And I had to log into PSN?
Oh, right. They fixed it the first day or something so that it wouldn't require it.
Oh, well, I refunded it within like an hour.
Yeah, because apparently some people were having problems logging in, so they removed the login requirement. And then
I was having tons of problems logging in. It took fucking forever, and then I finally refunded it.
And then like a month or two later, they just added it back in as a mandatory thing, including in regions where you can't even get a PSN account. And so it got review bombed on Steam because all these people were like, you took away this game that I was playing and enjoying by adding this requirement. And then Steam lifted the refund window on it and said, okay, anybody can just refund it. Doesn't matter how many hours you've played. And a ton of people started getting refunds. And then Sony was like, never mind, we're going to take away this requirement. You don't need a PSN account anymore.
Once again, Valve does the literal, the definition of the bare minimum, which is maybe we should allow people who cannot physically play this game anymore the ability to refund it.
Yeah.
That's like the absolute bare minimum you could possibly do. And they look like fucking superheroes in this dumpster fire of an industry.
Right.
By just not being absolute fucking goblins all the time.
Right.
It continues to astound me that like Valve hasn't gotten better or anything. They've just been doing the same shit. And then everyone else is just like, I don't know, what if we were the fucking worst? Like at this point, I don't know who's in charge of Sony, but I think it's Sauron. It has to be.
And who else? This was first, it was Sony's biggest ever PC release.
Yeah.
And second, it's one of their most successful multiplayer releases ever. And they're like, what if we fucked it real bad?
Yeah, for no reason.
Yeah. Well, there is a reason. They want the metric data.
Oh, they want to sell your information.
Yes.
Right. I forgot.
Fortunately, Sony's never been hacked or anything.
Zook Hero 3, aka Super Rockman, a weird Taiwanese bootleg Mega Man game for Game Boy Color, has been found and dumped 17 years after a dumping group said they'd release it.
So
It's almost old enough to vote. You might as well release it. Why not?
So some group that used to regularly dump Game Boy Color games, after all of them had been dumped, continued to kind of hint that they had found these weird, obscure bootlegs and they were going to release these. And this was one that they said they were going to release and never did and kept coming up with excuses. And so a lot of people just thought it didn't exist, that it was just like a joke.
Yeah.
And it was found just recently at a flea market in Taiwan. I think it was in Taiwan. It might have been Singapore. But it was found. It is dumped. It is just as janky as you expect it to be. But I'm all for weird, janky Game Boy Color games.
Do they have a Zook Hero 1 and 2?
They do.
Oh, excellent.
They are out there. You can find them.
I love weird bootlegs. I think my favorite weird bootleg is that one Final Fantasy VII NES port.
That was pretty good.
That one's fun. I like that one.
That's pretty good.
Prototype Super Famicom went up for auction on Yahoo Japan because why not? We'll just put it on Yahoo Japan. That's fine. This is great.
I think it started at about $10,000 US.
Oof. That's rich.
So what is different about it is it has a headphone jack and a volume dial for its headphone jack. It has a completely different and unique AV output. That we do not know what the pinout for it is yet, but the RF is the same, so it can connect that way.
Yeah.
And it has an extension port on the front, which we don't know what that's supposed to connect to. We assume it's a controller extension like the Famicom had. Mm-hmm. And the controller ports are not very different, but they are different enough from the actual retail Super NES that you can't use controllers on it. And the seller does not have the AV cable or the controllers. So figure it out.
How do you end up with one but not the other?
Right. And it was a prototype that was shown off at I want to say TGS or WCES one year, and it has a red power switch, unlike the retail model, which just had a gray power switch.
Yeah, it looks like a weird hot rod,
right?
Super Nintendo.
Yeah, it's different.
Xbox shuts down a bunch more studios, including Arcane Austin and Tango Gameworks.
Yeah. And what's funny is, like, the day after they shut down all these studios, one of the Xbox executives was like, we really need more smaller breakout games like Hi-Fi Rush, the day after they shut down Hi-Fi Rush's studio.
In response, fans nuked Phil Spencer's base in Fallout 76.
The mature route.
Like, I'm sure he doesn't actively play the game,
right?
But I like to imagine he's like, all right, a nice day of destroying huge swaths of the game industry, publicly making fun of it by saying we need more games like that. I'm going to log into some Fallout. What the fuck? Nukes falling on his base.
And one of the executives from Arcane Leon, who is still working at Microsoft, working on that Marvel's Blade game, he went on Twitter and publicly lambasted all these quote corporations, not naming any in particular, that talk about how much they care about the gaming industry and then just throw the employees to the ground like they're nothing.
Fuck Sony, fuck Microsoft, fuck Square Enix.
And Nintendo. Let's throw them in there too.
To be fair, Nintendo's pretty good about not shutting down studios,
but they also
they
don't
can get
name
fucked
their
for completely other
often.
reasons.
Yeah.
That's true. They can get fucked for totally other reasons that are anti-consumer and shitty.
Yes.
They can all just get fucked.
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo, speaking of, says they'll announce the Switch's successor this fiscal year. The gaming surprise that surprises nobody.
Right.
And
the announcement did come across like old man finding a keyboard, because the very first one is, "This is Furukawa, president of Nintendo," and it's just it makes me it makes me think of that bit from Yakuza where Kiryu is typing at the webcam girl and he's like one finger hunting pecking.
I don't know. I've already kind of expressed my minor disappointment with, like, here's the thing. The Switch is insanely successful.
Yes.
And he's already confirmed that it's basically going to be like the Switch, but more.
Yeah.
There's no hope for this being like something new or different. It's just going to be the Switch,
We
but
don't know
probably
that.
4K.
He said this will be switched to next model, but that doesn't specify. It's probably going to be more of the same. That'd be great, but it's Nintendo. You never know. Maybe they'll emphasize motion controls or add a clip-on screen that makes it impossible to play on a TV or some other dumb fucking thing.
I think it's just going to be the Switch, but 4K, a little faster.
I'm okay with that.
I mean, I'm okay with it too, but like, and obviously, I want whatever the next system is to still be compatible with all my Switch games.
Right.
But I also kind of wish it was weird, you know. I think what it is it's just been so long since Nintendo did weird shit that I kind of miss it.
See,
and then they're gonna do it. We're all gonna bitch that it's weird and
Yeah.
not normal. But that, you know what I mean? I think I'm just on the opposite end of the pendulum right now.
Yeah, see, I don't want the weird shit. One, because it's weird shit and I don't want to play weird shit. And two, it makes it incredibly hard to preserve and emulate. We're already seeing that with the Wii U and the DS and all that other dumb weird shit they've done in the past.
Yeah. Finally, Slovenian radio station Radio Student broadcast the ZX Spectrum game Contraband 2 over their FM radio waves to celebrate the game's 40th anniversary. What did that sound like, you think?
Well, it sounded like modem static because you had to put a cassette tape into your radio and record it to the cassette tape and then put it in your ZX Spectrum and play it.
How long was it?
I don't know. I think it was an hour or two.
I'm sorry. For 2 hours, they broadcast modem sounds?
Yeah, it might have been less than an hour because it had to record to a cassette tape, and those were, what, like 30 minutes per side?
It's been a minute. I don't know.
So,
I think they had 120-minute per side tapes by the end there. They had the big
I don't know
ones.
if that would... I think the quality might be so bad that might not play back in a ZX Spectrum at 120-minute tape.
I might be thinking 90-minute anyway. Either way, not a ton.
Yeah, not a ton of space there. But I think it's charming and cute that they did this. I don't know that anybody should have taken advantage of this when you could just as easily play the game on archive.org where Radio Student uploaded it.
Go download the ROM.
They themselves made it available. You can go download it right now. It'll be a lot faster than recording it to a cassette tape too.
I know that it's just the fact that it's midnight right now and I'm tired and it's late. But I'm imagining a bit in like an 80s movie where it's like a road trip movie and some guy meant to bring his cassette tapes, but he accidentally brought all his ZX Spectrum tapes.
Nice.
And they're like, what the fuck is this shit? Because it's just like screeching when they try to play it.
Like Tommy Boy style, throwing it out the back of the car.
And like, that's the joke. The little nerdy guy brought his wrong tapes. I don't know where I'm going with this. Let's talk about the topic at hand, which is title. That's what we have here. Professional fucking show.
Nice.
This week we're talking about the Nintendo DS.
Yeah.
Which, thank you, Saturn wrote it in the notes. The DS part stands for dual screen, right?
No.
Is that what it stands for?
No, they explicitly said that's not what it stood for.
What does it fucking stand for then?
Developer system.
Shut up.
It's the Nintendo Developer System.
Shut the fuck up,
because it's
Nintendo.
so developer friendly.
Shut up. It stands for dual screen.
It's the Developer System, Justin.
Release data. The Nintendo DS released November 21st, 2004 in North America. The original model debuted at $149.99.
Yep.
Came out in Japan December 2nd, 2004. Australia, February 24th, 2005.
Okay.
And in European territories, March 11th, 2005.
Yep.
There were a few hardware revisions, which we'll talk more about later.
Yeah.
The DS Lite came out in March and June of 2006. The DSi was November 2008 and April 2009. And the DSi XL was November 2009 and March 2010. Mm-hmm. As far as contemporary systems, because I think it's important to talk about kind of what was going on. Yeah, what was going on. Obviously, the GBA was out. That was a thing. The PSP was, pretty contemporary with the DS, but the DS was first by a little ways.
By a couple of months.
I think
less than a month.
at least in North America, the Neo Geo Pocket Color was probably still floating around in blister packs.
Maybe.
Maybe.
They had mostly been clearanced out by that point, because those were closer to 02, 03 that those were in blister packs.
Yeah. And the GBA was what 3.5 years old right now.
Yep.
When the DS comes out, the N-Gage was a thing. This was hot N-Gage territory, Saturn. Tell us about.
There was no hot N-Gage territory.
This was as hot as it got. This is lukewarm N-Gage territory.
No, this was after the N-Gage had already kind of flopped, but they still kept trying to prop it up.
Was it 02?
02 or 03 is when the N-Gage came out, but Nokia tried to keep propping it up until 06. So this was late in the N-Gage QD's lifespan. So that was basically dead, but available.
Yeah. I think the important release is the one you put here in the notes, which is 3 years later, the iPhone would come out.
Yes, that is the one that really competed with the DS.
Which is the everything device that we talked about a little bit last episode.
Yep.
Hardware specs for the DS: 67 megahertz ARM 946ES. That is the DS processor.
CPU, yeah.
CPU. There's a 33 megahertz ARM 7 TDMI, which is just a straight up GBA CPU also in there. That's how it is GBA compatible. It's just they just put the guts in there.
Wouldn't be the first time they did that. Won't be the last.
4 megabytes of RAM. 2 TFT LCDs at 256 by 192 pixels, and Wi-Fi capability.
Yeah, and it supports up to wireless B security.
And also, the touchscreen is capacitive.
Yes.
For you youngins out there, that means it doesn't respond to like your
touch.
The touch. It responds to pressure.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of press on it, and there's a little bit of give on the screen, like all these capacitive touchscreens had, where they kind of bend inward a little bit where you go to press them at. As far as first encounters, I bought a DS and Super Mario 64 DS right at launch. I was so stoked. I traded in a big pile of Game Boy stuff for it because I was only 14 and I wouldn't start working for a year.
I think we got that backwards. It is a resistive touchscreen. Capacitive is what we use now.
Yes, resist. Thank you. We did get it completely backwards. It is a resistive touchscreen.
Yes.
So I would have been 14. Hold on, I was born in 88. So
it would have been 16.
It would have been 16 when it came out. So I was working. I was working by now.
Yeah.
I was definitely not at GameStop yet. So that would put me either, I think it would have been at Taco Casa at this juncture. I was working at a taco joint and I had no money. And I traded in a bunch of Game Boy stuff for it.
Yeah.
I played the crap out of the DS. I loved the GBA compatibility. I was all in on the GBA. I jumped at the chance to switch to the DS Lite when it came out. I remember now I was working at GameStop when the Lite came out, and I got that real fast. Yeah. And I still play my DS. It's still charged up downstairs. I've been talking about it on the show for the last few weeks. Right. It's almost like we plan these shows around what we've been interested in lately. It's so weird. Isn't that insane? I played a lot of the DS. I still play a lot of the DS. Any chance we get whenever we do shows like emulation devices or whatever, I mention the DS because it's still a good system.
Oh, yeah.
Which
and it's still relatively cheap.
Yeah. I mean, you could pick up a DS for, we have it later in the notes, but you can pick one up between like $15-$70 depending on the model in relatively decent shape. There's tons of parts available for them, reshells, new buttons, whatever you need. They're fantastic. Everyone's going nuts for these GBA SP AGS 101 models, and DS Lites are just languishing on eBay.
Yeah.
They're great.
Right?
What about you? First encounters Nintendo DS.
I think I was working at Best Buy at the time. And I remember when it first came out, I was like, I'm not going to get that. That's goofy and gimmicky, and I don't want it. And like a week later, I had seen some video footage of Mario 64 DS online, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go get a DS. And so I went up to the store I was working at, bought a DS and a copy of Mario 64, and played it using the thumb nubbins that came with it.
Yep.
But mostly I played GBA games on it for at least a year or two. I remember playing Final Fantasy Dawn of Souls on it because that had just come out. And I didn't start playing a ton of actual DS games until after the Lite came out.
I feel like that's when it kind of came to its own for
Right.
sure.
And I did get the Lite pretty quickly after it launched. The one that I had gotten at first has died since. One of its shoulder buttons died, and ended up swapping it out for a different one, the dual color black blue one.
That's one I have, yeah.
Yeah, and it's that one's still working just fine. That's the one I use today.
As far as development, the DS was announced in November 2003.
Yep.
And Nintendo labeled it their third pillar,
The third pillar.
implying that the GameCube and GBA would continue and the DS would be like a supplemental third product category,
Of course, yeah.
despite the fact that the DS also plays GBA games.
I feel like this was residual from the launch of the Virtual Boy. Because when the Virtual Boy had launched back in the day, briefly, it was thought that it would replace the Game Boy.
Yeah.
And
I
and
can
when
see
it
the fear.
collapsed, nobody wanted to be in that place anymore.
I think at the time, specifically in 04, the GameCube was already a complete sales travesty.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty likely they were concerned with their GBA developers working on stuff, because that's the only thing that was selling
Right.
in this era between the launch of the GameCube and the release of the DS was GBA stuff. This is floating Nintendo.
Right.
And so I could see them being concerned that GBA developers would be like, well, shit, man, we've been working on this GBA game. You're coming out with the next system. So I think they just didn't want to mess with their only cash cow, their very small, comparatively
Right.
cash cow that they had.
Well, fortunately, they wouldn't have a hard time convincing people to develop for it because it's a developer system, Justin.
Right, it's in the name.
Yeah. It's for the developers.
Allegedly, it was Hiroshi Yamauchi that had the idea for the Nintendo DS. But there are some Game & Watch designs that are suspiciously close to the design
Yeah.
of the DS. So
A
I don't
bunch
know
of
how much of it was him coming up with the idea or him pointing at a thing and going, we should do one of those, but now.
Right.
But of course, there's no telling what is and isn't apocryphal. This is still in the era when
Right.
we just didn't get a lot of
Yeah.
information about
And
this
even
kind of stuff.
the interviews and stories we've gotten since then are a little, they feel embellished.
This is also Nintendo's push to expand the gaming population,
Right.
which would be continued with the Wii, which would really
Yeah.
be kind of the success of this.
Yep.
This felt like a device that was for not just gamers. This was
Yes.
Nintendo going, hey, we aren't appealing to the core audience right now.
Yeah.
And a lot of the core audience has gone over to PS2.
Right.
We need to get normies.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, the game audience felt like it had gotten as big as it was going to get, so we needed to get new customers if we were going to continue to grow the market, and so they went after the casual market.
Yeah. We have a quote here from Hiroshi Yamauchi that says, if the DS succeeds, we will rise to heaven. But if it fails, we will sink to hell. That's a quote from Spirits Within, I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure they said that in that movie.
Yeah.
I'm relatively certain.
That sounds right.
Notably, Reggie Fils-Aimé joined Nintendo shortly before the console's launch. So he was very much
The
the
face of it at
spokesperson
first,
of
yeah.
the DS and Wii era of Nintendo.
Yeah, he was
And-
about kicking ass and taking names, if you recall.
Yeah. I remember at my GameStop, we had a shirt that was Reggie holding a Wii remote and a nunchuck
Yeah.
in like a looks like a kung fu kind of pose, and he's wearing like baggy pants and he's shirtless and he's fucking shredded. And it just says like my body is ready at the
Yeah.
bottom,
Yeah.
and I hate that I do not still have that shirt. Just fucking shredded Reggie Fils-Aimé holding a Wii remote. It was the dumbest, weirdest promotion.
That quote was one of the best of Reggie's time at Nintendo.
Yeah, I don't know what it was even for, or
I
what it came out
I
for.
believe it was when they were pitching Wii Fit was when he did the My Body Is Ready.
That must have been when it came out, because it was just shredded ass Reggie who had a million shirts stuffed in a drawer that was just Reggie Fils-Aimé fucking jacked, ready to kill someone with a Wii remote.
I remember this was, in the early days of memes when you still had a bunch of rage comics and dumb bullshit out there.
Right.
And somebody had posted a meme that said my body is Reggie, and it was just some dude, but it was a bunch of copy pasted Reggies all over his body. It's a different era.
Internet humor.
Right.
Let's talk about the launch of the system.
Yeah.
Nintendo DS was the first console Nintendo released outside of
First
Japan. Console to release first outside of Japan.
Yeah.
I couldn't get the sentence out. And halfway through, I realized it was wrong.
Yeah.
The North American launch was pushed forward to beat Black Friday sales. A reported 500,000 units were sold in the first week of sales in North America, with sales reaching 2.8 million by the end of the year between Japan and North American regions. And by June of 2005, after coming out in all major markets, sales had reached a reported 6.65 million units.
Which is a lot for less than a year.
Insane amount.
For a system they weren't even sure was going to have any attention.
For a handheld.
Right?
I mean, it was nuts. It was something different, for sure. Let's go over this launch window. The system came with a demo for Metroid Prime Hunters.
In North America and Europe.
In North America. And I remember I played the crap out of that. And I was blown away. It was the most amazing thing in the world to me that I was playing a first-person shooter on a handheld Saturn.
It.
And not just Doom.
Much.
Oh, I hated it too. I thought it controlled like dog shit. I was like, I can't fucking shoot anything and it sucks. But look, it's a handheld FPS.
Yeah.
I was so excited.
Yeah,
I was so excited for it.
I did not like Metroid Prime Hunters 1 because that's not what Metroid is to me. And I was worried that if Metroid Prime Hunters succeeded, that we'd never get a successor to Metroid Zero Mission. And I was right, but it still didn't succeed. But also just it controls like shit. That's such a bad controlling game.
Yep. So Metroid Prime Hunter's First Hunt was a launch window game for the system. The name kind of implies that they thought that they were going to make more of them.
Well, no, it was a demo for the full version of Metroid Prime Hunters.
Oh, is that what it was? I thought First Hunt was the full title.
No, that was just the name of the demo.
First Hunt was just the demo.
Yep.
All right. The big one for me was Super Mario 64 DS. The idea that I had something that was as capable as an N64, but it could go in my pocket. Blew my mind.
What got me was not only was it a portable version of Mario 64, but it had new content because you could play as Luigi, you could play as Wario, you could play as Yoshi.
Yes.
So there was new shit in there versus the N64 version. So not only was it as good as an N64, it was potentially better.
In retrospect, Super Mario 64 DS is not a beloved version of the game,
but it's getting better because now there are emulators that will emulate the touchscreen onto an analog stick, and if you play it on a 3DS, you can apply a patched ROM version of it that supports the 3DS's analog stick as if it was the touchscreen, so that you can use actual analog movement in the game, which makes it a much better game.
So for people that don't remember or weren't there, the original DS launched with a little like lanyard strap.
Yep.
So it had the pin, and the original DS pin was this little tiny skinny piece of shit like PDA stylus thing. Yeah. And it launched with this lanyard, and the idea was that on this lanyard was this little hard pad and a little cinchy bit. So you would put the pad on the pad of your thumb and cinch it up tight so that your thumb had like a hard helmet on it.
Yes.
And then you would press on the screen and use it like you would a joystick.
Yes.
There's a few problems with this.
One, you can't see the screen.
You can't see the screen. Also, it's the stupidest idea ever. Also, it sucked and was bad and fell off your thumb and just wasn't. It's just bad.
I didn't have the problems with it falling off my thumb. And I was able to control the game well enough to play through all of Mario 64 with it. But it was still bad.
Yeah, it was not good.
It was not good.
Plarium was launch window, which was Plarium's pretty fun. It's a pretty fun game. I remember Herbs, The Sims in the City sold pretty well.
I feel like Meteos was pretty close to launch.
Meteos, I remember Meteos being concurrent with Plarium because it was like, do we have Tetris? No, we have Meteos and Plarium, and then later we got Tetris.
Yeah.
Ping Pals. I want to talk about Ping Pals.
Okay.
Ping Pals is literally just a chat program. Because the DS launched with the amazing ability to boot PictoChat. It was built into the system, the operating system. And in PictoChat, you could draw pictures and send them to people within like 100 feet of you, barring walls or interference or wireless routers.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. Me and my friends all got DSs at launch.
Mm-hmm.
And they all came over to my house, and we all sat in different rooms PictoChatting each other.
Of course.
It was the stupidest thing, but we were so fucking excited.
I remember I had bought my ex a DS Lite. I got her the pink one because she was big into pink everything. And so I had my white DS. She had her pink one. And we went up to IHOP, and we each had our DSs for some reason. And our friend happened to have his DS. He had the red one.
Yeah.
And so the three of us are at IHOP with our fourth friend, and she didn't have a DS. And so the three of us kept PictoChatting each other, and then like reading the screen and acting like it was very important information, and like, yes, very good. But it was all pictures of dicks, of course.
Yeah.
Because that's what you PictoChat each other.
But then what would happen is you would get someone that would draw a dick by coloring the whole screen in black and then erasing a dick into it. And that was the like
that was the high effort dick pic.
Yeah. And it was PictoChat was fun as shit. Now Ping Pals, it was just PictoChat again.
Yes.
But you could have like little avatars kinda.
Oh, I see.
It was just kind of like fancy PictoChat. And we all played it. It was like fucking Ping Pals, man. I rented it. I rented Ping Pals to play it with my friends so we could all sit in the same building in different rooms and Ping Pal each other. Other stuff, Rayman DS, I don't remember. I don't remember that one at all. Robots was, I think, a tie-in with the Robots movie at the time.
Yeah.
Zookeeper was really fun on DS.
I never tried that.
That was it's a fun little like match 3 game, but instead of blocks, they're little tiny cute color-coded zoo animals.
Yeah, and I was looking through the list of games that released at launch on the system. One, I'm upset that I had to wait for Mr. Driller because that was a launch game in every other region but here.
Yep.
And two, I saw that there's this retro Atari collection that Europe got as a launch game that never even released over here. And part of me is really glad that it didn't because I totally would have been suckered into buying that.
Yeah. Feel the Magic, XYXX. We need to talk about this game.
Yep.
I didn't get it.
Oh.
Like, I mean, I played it, but like, I didn't get it. I didn't know why we wanted this. Why was this the thing we wanted?
It was a weird little thing. It was just a mini game thing.
Yeah. I just, yeah. I mean, granted.
It tided me over until WarioWare released.
Yeah. WarioWare Touch was also a launch window.
Yeah.
I feel like Feel the Magic was just like another one was Elite Beat Agents.
Yep.
Those are both kind of in the same camp for me.
Yeah. And Rub Rabbits.
Where I'm like it's not much of a game, so I don't care. I don't know.
I like those weird little mini gamey collection things like that.
I do too, but not for full price. I think is what it is.
I paid full price for a lot of WarioWare games. Hell, I paid full price for the Space Channel games. So really, I have no room to talk about what is worth it.
But all this to say that the launch window was pretty good, pretty diverse. I mean, you still have like, there's a racing game, there's a football game, there's a golf game, there's Mario on it. There was a Pokemon game in non-American territories. It's Pokemon Dash. It's a little spinoff, but Pokemon were on it.
Yeah.
You know, like it
took a while for a proper Pokemon on the system, though.
And we even got the weird shit with Feel the Magic and WarioWare pretty quick. Yeah. So Feel the Magic, I think, was day one. WarioWare was a little bit later.
Yeah.
And so it was a good mix. It was a good launch of an eclectic mix of titles.
Yeah, WarioWare was available at launch in every region except for the U.S.
Yeah. And in response, the reception was very positive. I mean, like we said, it sold crazy well and then seemed to be accelerating as other notable releases were coming out later. Things like Brain Age, which was part of the... God, what do they call it? There was that series of games where they're...
iTouch or whatever?
Yeah, they would have a little logo on the front, and it was like, this is a game that is not played like a traditional game. It's played mostly touch screen. Sometimes you hold it sideways like a book. And they were games that were kind of meant to appeal to like non-gamer types, stuff like Brain Age.
A G-Touch Generation. That's what it was.
G-Touch Generation. What a dumb designation. Grandma Touch. That must be what it stands for. Because it's your grandma games. And
I guess they only referred to it as touch generation, but the logo was a giant G in front of that.
it was like an orange looking thing, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. And so that was how they would designate, like, hey, these are not traditional games.
Right.
These are more like game-like app experiences. Stuff like
Nintendogs and
Nintendogs is a great
Electroplankton.
example. Yeah. Oh, I forgot about Electroplankton.
Mm-hmm.
Which obviously, you know, I think we're pretty staunchly, at least at the time, in the core gamer
Right.
demographic.
Yeah.
You know, like I played Brain Age, I played Nintendogs, but I wasn't dumping 100 hours into them.
I possibly put that much time into Brain Age, but just Sudoku.
Okay, well, I don't know if that counts if it's just Sudoku.
I would just do my daily Sudoku on Brain Age, and like once every week or so, I'd remember to check in and be like, "You're not checking in often enough."
Yeah.
So,
but let's talk notable exclusives. There's a shitload of amazing DS games. I want to throw out there. It has possibly the best selection of Pokemon games, bar none. I mean,
is that if you're including the GBA ones too, or
if you include the GBA ones, then it's insane. It's not even fair. But just the DS, you've got Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, which are pretty good. You got Black and White 2, which are some of my favorites. And then you have Heart Gold and Soul Silver, which are often regarded as the best Pokemon games, period, that have existed in all time. So you basically get 4 sets of Pokemon games. That's insane. And every one of them is good. They're all good Pokemon games. They've got multiple Dragon Quest. It's 4, 5, 6, 9 on DS. Is that correct?
Yep, 4, 5, 6, 9, and Rocket Slime.
Rocket Slime also finally came to U.S. shores on the DS, and it's a stellar game. You have multiple Final Fantasies. Final Fantasy 3 on DS, I played to death. I was I don't know why, but I was so excited for Final Fantasy 3.
Well, this is the first time that one released in the U.S., which was exciting. First time it released outside of Japan at all.
In this era, I didn't even know the difference between, like, I didn't know the whole 3-6 thing. I didn't know anything about Final Fantasy. I knew Final Fantasy 7. And you know what it was? I had played Dawn of Souls. So I'm like, all right, that's 1 and 2. This is 3.
Yeah.
And this was the first time I was experiencing all 3 of these games.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, most people in America experienced Final Fantasy 3 the first time here, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until Wii Virtual Console that I went back and ever played Final Fantasy 6. I don't think I ever got that one on GBA even. I think I stopped at 5 because I was like, there's no way 6 is better than 5. And I just want to say, I think I was correct.
You're not.
But 6 is still a very good game. I don't know why you hate Butts so much. Butts is a great protagonist.
Look, Butts isn't my problem with the game. Everybody loves Butts, Justin.
Really good Castlevanias on this. We got 3. We got the first one, which is Castlevania.
It was Donosaro, then Portrait of Ruin, then Order of Ecclesia, if I remember
Order of Ecclesia is often regarded as like one of the absolute best modern Castlevania games. It is very highly rated.
Yep.
And I remember it was great. Really, really good one.
Oh, yeah.
You got New Super Mario Brothers, which was a big fucking deal at the time.
Oh, yeah.
It was a big
return
Mario
to 2D platformers for Mario. It was got rid of a lot of the extraneous stuff that had been added to the series over the years. Just kind of went back to the roots. And now, I mean, New Super Mario Brothers feels so vanilla and generic because of how long they kept that series going without any real innovation. But at the time, it was just such a huge return to form.
It was, people were stoked. I mean, it had been so long since we had seen 2D Mario.
Right.
There was concern that like we would never go back to it. Right.
Because it had been since Super Nintendo, since early in the Super Nintendo.
You got Cookin' Mama. You got what was that game? Trauma Surgeon.
Oh yeah. Trauma Center.
Trauma Center. That was a fun game.
Yeah.
I believe the Phoenix Wright games were on DS. At least the first one wasn't it?
Oh well, it was on GBA in Japan.
Right, in Japan, but in North America, we got it on DS first.
Yeah.
The Professor Layton game started on DS. We got Scribblenauts was a big one.
Yep.
I played a lot of Scribblenauts.
Oh yeah.
We got we have to talk about the Zelda games.
No, do we?
which is Spirit Tracks and the other one,
Phantom Hourglass.
Phantom Hourglass.
Yeah.
These were I remember this being some of the most frustrating gaming experiences I'd ever had, because like Mario, Link was getting a return to like 2D. It was like a 2D top-down Zelda game.
And we'd gotten that on GameCube with Four Swords Adventures.
Sure, but that's like a side game,
and
you know?
GBA had Minish Cap.
It did, but like those were both good. They felt different. Minish Cap, I still maintain, there's something that feels weird about it.
For me, the two DS games are when the top-down Zelda games really kind of died off, because you had Four Swords, you had Minish Cap, you had Oracles, and you had Link's Awakening still continuing on handhelds while the 3D games are coming out. And then when the 2DS games came out, they felt more like the 3D games than they did like the 2D games, and also they controlled awkwardly.
Yeah. So I was excited that it was top-down Zelda, and I was hoping it was going to be it feeling right, because Four Swords is just a crazy. It's fun, but it's a very weird, crazy game. I never liked Minish Cap, and it never felt like Zelda to me. I don't know what it was. I mean, granted, it was made by Capcom, you know, and I think it's a very good game.
So were the Oracles games, though.
True, and I guess they also do feel pretty weird. Really, all the handheld Zeldas feel weird. I think what we're getting around to is that I don't know what I'm talking about, but I do know this. Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks fucking sucked.
Yes.
Because you control Link with the goddamn stylus.
Now, there have been fan hacks that have fixed this.
Sure. Yes.
The other issue, I believe it was, I think it was Phantom Hourglass, where you had to control the movement of some vehicle or whatever through the microphone, and it encouraged you to blow into it.
Yes.
And a friend of mine, who was a huge Zelda fan, had severe COPD. He could not blow into the microphone, and it ruined his experience on the game so much that he just discarded Zelda forever, which
that's awful.
Sucks because he was such a huge fan of the series.
Yeah.
But yeah, those two are probably my least favorite games in the Zelda series.
They're perfect examples of when Nintendo takes weird too far. And I think the DS so perfectly encapsulates these two extremes of Nintendo being weird. The Wii does too, in a lot of ways, with a lot of its titles, where like you get stuff like Brain Age, which is so fucking weird.
Yeah.
And Nintendogs is so fucking weird.
Right.
But they're great.
Yeah.
And then they go and Kid Icarus Uprising, some Zelda games, and you're like, why did you... Well, it was a great idea, but then what did you do this thing on top of it for? They Star Fox Zero'd it.
Right? It feels like there's a part of Nintendo that takes these weird gimmicks and makes an original creative thing out of it. And then there's the other part of Nintendo that's like, how can we shoehorn this into series that absolutely don't need this?
Yeah. Let's talk hardware revisions.
We didn't mention Tetris DS.
Oh yeah, Tetris DS,
which is phenomenal.
Which is the previous reigning Tetris champ as best, most fun Tetris game of all time until Apotros came.
And it has some of the most interesting and original minigame Tetris games in there.
My favorite one is the Metroid one, where you're just a big blob of blocks flying through space.
My favorite one is the Donkey Kong one, where you're pushing towards the other screen where the other guy is. Love
That's
that
a fun one.
Also, Retro Game Challenge.
We can't forget about that. Yes. Which I know we've mentioned it many times. There's a fan translation of the sequel. You should play it. It's fun. Please go steal it.
Also, Rocket Slime. Did we mention Rocket Slime?
We did. I saw it on the list twice.
We should mention it a third time because I love Rocket Slime.
Rocket Slime was my second Dragon Quest game. So my first three Dragon Quest games were Dragon Quest VIII, Rocket Slime, and then Dragon Warrior on NES.
All three good choices, yeah.
Those are three in the order I played them in.
That's fine. As long as one of them wasn't Dragon Quest Swords on Wii, you're fine.
Yeah. Hardware revisions.
Yeah.
We got the DS Lite, and much like the first 3DS revision, I feel like this is when the system really happened.
Yeah.
It also coincides. It's a few months early, but it mostly coincides with the Wii coming out.
It was about 6 months before the Wii.
Yeah, so because Wii was late 06 and this was spring 06.
This is also when we started to see GBA sales winding down.
Yeah.
Because I think this is the first one to release after the Game Boy Micro, if I remember right.
We always mix up the Micro. We always mix up the Micro and the AGS 101. I don't remember. In my memory, it was DS Lite and then Micro.
Yeah, the Micro and the SP 101 both released September of 2005.
Okay, so they were right before the DS Lite.
Yeah.
DS Lite, smaller form factor, much brighter screens. The screens on the original DS are kind of hard to deal with, kind of like the AGS 001 GBA SP. The GBA cart sticks out a bit, which originally I hated. I hated it. So I remember I was so upset that I went back to my original DS and played it for like another week or two. Because the GBA cart sticks the fuck out, and now these days it's just a part of my DS.
The DS experience.
I don't notice it anymore. But I was frustrated.
On my DS Lite, I bought a Easy Flash 5 kit that came with the regular flash cart that goes in the DS slot, but it also came with a GBA flash cart that fits flush in the DS Lite.
Yes.
And I love it. I love that so much.
They still sell that one, but I got the big fat one because I wanted RTC and Rumble.
I see.
And the big fat one has RTC and Rumble, and I was like, really?
I don't need either of those things.
I remember, this is going to might sound weird, but I remember being so excited about the DS because I could carry with me 2 games at one time.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Without having to have like a little, because I was always really scared to carry little cases with extra game carts and stuff.
Because if they get lost, then that's all of your games.
I didn't want to get them lost or stolen or swiped or what. I was always so scared that was going to happen. And so I didn't like to carry extra games with me on my Game Boy or anything. But my DS, I could stick it in my pocket and have two games, Saturn.
If only you'd had the Radica Gamester for the GBA.
If only I had the Radica. I still have your Radica Gamester. It's still, every time I take it out, I'm like, yeah. The DS Lite is quintessential DS for me. This was the one I played the most. This is the one I still have. I love this one. It's got great screens. This is the hardware I recommend. It is affordable. There's tons of parts available for it. If you don't have yourself a DS Lite, go get yourself one.
Yeah.
Because I think like with an R4 card and $100 for a GBA flash cart, really decking it out. I think if you really shopped around and you were frugal and you were smart and you made some deals on eBay, you could get a DS, a GBA flash cart, and a DS flash cart for under $200.
I'm sure, yeah.
And have full access to the entire DS and GBA libraries on original hardware.
And if you're willing to get those flash carts on AliExpress, you could probably go way cheaper than that.
Oh, yeah, if you're willing. Yeah, and some of those are a little janky. You got some shit to deal with.
Yeah.
But if you're so inclined, they function fine. They're just not as convenient.
Yeah, it looks like DS Lites, you can still get those for $50, $60 these days.
Oh, yeah. Then you can get it well under $200. You can even leave in space there for a battery, which I just replaced the battery on my DS. Finally, I replaced its original battery.
I don't know that I would ever need to replace mine because mine still has a charge and I haven't charged it in like 4 years.
Well, there you go. The DSi came out in November 2008 and April 2009. This is well into the Wii territory.
Yep.
And this is very much them trying to put it kind of in line with the Wii a little bit. It loses GBA
the DSi
functionality.
Shop channel.
Yeah, but you get the DSi Shop channel. So no more GBA games. It's faster CPU, more RAM. It has a front-facing and rear camera for taking pictures and an SD card slot to store presumably your apps and your pictures on.
Right.
And they made a bigger one. The DSi XL came out in November 2009, March 2010. It's the same thing, but a little bit bigger. Both DSi models are really slick. If you are not interested in GBA, which you should be because it's an amazing platform.
Right.
But if you're not interested in GBA, DSi systems, I think, are either pretty similarly priced or sometimes cheaper, not the XL, but the original DSi. And specifically the DSi XL is the biggest way to play DS games.
It's true.
So if you're only in it for DS games, then...
Well, you could use a 3DS XL. Wasn't that the same size as a DSi?
Yeah, I guess I was thinking in the price ballpark.
Okay.
Like if you're after DS hardware, because 3DS is a whole different price category.
I don't know why. That's so
it has gotten
ridiculous to me.
surprisingly collectible.
But it looks like DSi is actually cheaper than the actual DS.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
It's even better.
I'm seeing them 20 to 50 in that area.
Really?
With the DSi XL, a little bit more, about 50 to 60.
So for under $100, you could get one of the DSi models and an R4 card, and maybe put new battery in it and be off to the races. Full DS library, full compatible, pretty close to full compatibility anyway.
Right.
As far as accessories, there was a Rumble Pack that plugs in the GBA slot.
I think it came with Metroid, didn't it? With Metroid Prime Pinball or Metroid Hunter?
Metroid Prime Pinball is what it came with.
Okay.
Because it supported pinball. I was trying to think of games that support the Rumble Pack. Metroid Prime Pinball does. That's the only one I can think of.
Let's see.
Did anything else use it in North America anyway? I'm sure maybe in Japan something did, but I don't think anything.
I feel like there was something else. I feel like I had heard somewhere.
There's like one more. I think there was two
Elite
games.
Beat Agent supports it.
Okay. Yeah.
Grid supports it. Hotel Dusk supports it. Clubhouse Games supports it.
Why? For
I
what?
don't
I forgot about the original Clubhouse games. We didn't even mention that in our games list. That was a kick-ass game.
Both Metroid Prime Pinball and Metroid Prime Hunter support it.
There you go.
Mario and Luigi Partners in Time.
Mario and Luigi,
DS.
that's what I was thinking of. Why?
I don't know. Sega and Sonic All-Stars Racing.
So my flash card has an option where I can put it into accessory pack mode and let it be a DS Rumble Pack. Now I got to go check out all these Rumble features I didn't know I was missing.
Now, I have heard, and I have not tested this myself, but I have heard that if you use a GBA game that has a built-in Rumble Pack, that can work on some of these games as if it were the DS Rumble Pack. Like if you use Drill Dozer or something.
I don't know if that's true or not, and I sold my Drill Dozer after we did an episode because I didn't like the game.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. There was a web browser. It was Opera, the Opera web browser on the Nintendo
on the Wii.
DS.
Yep.
Yeah. And it used a RAM expansion that plugged into the GBA slot if you wanted to browse the web on your everything device. Who needs an iPhone? You've got a DS. So Wi-Fi USB adapter, which plugged in the USB slot on your computer and basically lets you create a wireless internet connection. And then shitloads of aftermarket accessories. I had the Guitar Hero controller for the DS. I bought the whole game new in box for like $3 at GameStop one time, played it once, and I was like, this is dog shit.
Yeah.
It's basically just 4 buttons that clamp onto the side of your DS so you hold it sideways.
So stupid.
And there's no point in doing that when you have ABXY. Like, what is the point?
It looks really dumb.
Lots of cases, lots of grips, lots of things like that. Much like the GBASP, we saw a little bit less in the way of cases and accessories because it was clamshell.
Yeah.
I had most of the cases were just little slips that it just went in. It was just like a little padded pocket. Yeah.
When I got my flash cart for my DS, and I got mine quite a while ago. I want to say it was 08 or 09 when I bought my flash cart for my DS. It came with a stylus that was extendable, but still fit in the DS stylus slot.
Oh.
And I still use that one. I have no idea what happened to my original stylus that came with the system anymore because that extendy stylus is just so nice.
I think the only problem I had with the DS Lite was that the stylus was more prone to falling out.
Yeah. Oh, that's the other thing. This aftermarket stylus fits real snug in there, and the tip of it has this big circle on it, so it's easy to feel it and pull it back out. It's really nice.
I'm jelly of your fancy DS stylus.
So nice.
One of my 3DSs, I picked it up the other day and I looked and there's no fucking stylus in the slot.
How?
I don't know how they fucked up the 3DS stylus so bad. That thing flies out of the 3DS. As far as Legacy, sold 154.02 million units worldwide, which is a fucking shitload.
Yes.
For pre-Switch handheld numbers.
Right.
That's a lot.
Even factoring in the Switch, that's still a lot.
It was succeeded by the 3DS, obviously, although it continued to outsell the 3DS for a little bit there. 3DS had a rough start.
Yes.
For people that don't remember, that was 2012. Was it 2012?
2012, I believe. Yeah. Maybe and 2011. It was
a really bumpy road, man. It was a real tough start.
Sorry. Yeah.
And that original model 3DS kind of sucked, and the battery life was real bad.
Yeah, it was rough.
As far as collecting, I think we made it pretty clear that the DS is still an affordable platform and includes access to GBA. Mm-hmm. Lots of DS games, like even if you want to go original cartridges, are still pretty affordable.
Yeah.
I will say that there are a lot of reproduction cartridges out there, so be careful, learn what to look for. learn how to spot fake cartridges. Most fake DS cartridges are really obvious.
Right.
It's stuff like on the back of DS cartridges, there's little plastic teeth between each little gold contact on the back of the DS cartridge.
Yep.
And then like repro cartridges won't have those teeth. It'll just be like a bare, contact there. So they're usually pretty easy to spot, but I've seen some pretty nice ones. So it's worth pointing that out. But there's a lot of DS games that I still occasionally will be like, oh, I don't own such and such on DS, and I'll go pick it up for like $10.
Mm-hmm.
It really feels like the Nintendo DS is kind of this weird sort of best kept secret in retro game collecting to me sometimes, if that makes sense.
And it was such a high selling system that it seems ridiculous that it isn't more sought after.
Yeah, I know. It's insane to me. Like,
my guess is just that because the 3DS is fully backwards compatible, people are not as after the DS.
I guess I like because I have 2 hacked 3DSs.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I can put GBA games on them. Yes, I can. It's backwards compatible and everything. But like, it's complicated.
Yeah,
it's kind of complex. I like the simplicity of the DS.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I like the functionality of the 3DS. I can play everything I can play on my DS on my 3DS, but it's just kind of fussy. Getting pirated games onto a 3DS is kind of fussy. You got to load up FBI, and then you got to do all the shit, and then getting GBA going on there is a thing, and there's like a utility.
It's easier than it was.
It is.
Now you can do wireless transfer and FTP transfer, and you can do virtual console loading,
but it's still just kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
You know, it's not. I mean, obviously, like the question is always going to be like, how seamless is pirating games going to be in the first place?
I think I need to get a new flash cart for my DS because mine is so old that a lot of games are incompatible with it. Because they still pop up with their piracy messages if I try to play them on there.
I picked mine up for $30 on Amazon, and it works great.
Nice.
All I did was I changed the backgrounds because it's got the backgrounds, of the menu, and it was like a dumbass picture of like Mario looking badass. So I just changed it to like a gray background.
Nice. You
But
didn't want badass Mario on there?
I didn't want badass Mario.
Weird.
But the DS is still collectible. Games are still affordable. Like I feel like Tetris DS is still like under $30.
Don't look at the price of the Dragon Quest games on there.
They're insane.
That's a mistake.
No, buy an R4 card to play those.
Yeah.
They are absolutely bananas.
And they have been for years.
And we didn't even mention the Etrian games on DS are also insanely priced, but thankfully they are collected in a kind of insanely priced collection on Steam, but still cheaper than picking up even one of the original cartridges. I guess this is getting into final thoughts. I didn't love the touch input a lot of the time. There was a lot of touch generation games I didn't care about.
Yeah.
Touch, mic, whatever, didn't always work fantastically. But there was some...
I had some issues with Puzzle Quest, sometimes not recognizing my inputs correctly.
Man, I went back and I played the DS port of Puzzle Quest, and it just is a shitty fucking version. The touch accuracy on that sucks.
It's the only version I've played for more than an hour, and I played just countless hours of it on there.
But there were some really outstanding games on the system, and with the addition of GBA and the older models, it really does make the system twice as good.
Oh yeah.
Anyone that has any interest in the DS, I would highly encourage that you jump on it now.
Yeah.
Because
the market suddenly explodes.
Before it explodes, it is drying up a little bit. The same way that Wiis are kind of starting, like good condition Wiis are sort of drying up.
Yeah.
And this is a thing you'll see a lot with this DS Wii era of Nintendo is the sales were off the fucking charts for Nintendo.
All right.
But specifically, a huge amount of these systems were bought by non-gamers.
Yes.
They were bought for kids. They were tossed in drawers. They were mistreated.
Yeah.
And
some of them were treated exceptionally well because they were bought by grandmas and kept in that little dresser next to their recliner, and no child ever touched them.
I've just definitely noticed that finding good condition Wiis and DSs has it's become a thing where you used to spend $40 and it was the first entry when you searched DS on eBay. Now you got to scroll down to the second page to find one that's like not beat up or gross looking or
I think it's because a lot of those people who didn't abuse the systems then gave them to Goodwill in a loose box with a bunch of other shit
and got rattled
tossed around. Yeah.
So I think we've got time, but I'm noticing movement. I'm noticing it start to dry up. I'm noticing that like every now and then when I need an odd DS or Wii accessory, it's not just fucking everywhere for basically free.
Right.
So if you are interested, and you should be, outstanding system, now's the time. I wouldn't sleep on it.
You remember that Zelda game that you had to do the mark on the map, and the way you did it was you had to close the lid and then reopen it, and it transferred something from the top screen to the bottom screen?
Yes, I goddamn
That was the
do.
dumbest shit ever. And
I think that was Phantom Hourglass.
I think it was. And that was the point where I just like stopped and was like, okay, Nintendo, it's time to stop with the gimmicks. Can we
what's
please
even
fucking
sadder
stop the gimmick?
about those games is that they were in, I don't know if they were in the same universe, but they were the same like art style as like Wind Waker.
Wind Waker, yeah.
And I was like, oh man, that's so cool. I liked Wind Waker and the aesthetic and stuff.
Yeah.
And then they were just like,
So I like Minish Cap.
You want to do a sword spin? You got to spin the stylus on the screen.
Yeah.
I still can't fucking do a sword spin. That goddamn. It's miserable.
Yeah, I was really worried that when you said, you know what else is fucking dumb, that was going to be your segue.
Our Patreon. It probably is. But I'm going to tell you about it anyway. Our definitely not fucking dumb Patreon. Patreon.com/Retro Warriors, where you can get all of there's the stuff we do there.
Well, you can control it with the stylus.
I feel bad because someone posted, I forgot we have a forum,
Mhm.
and I was like, I should check our forum.
Yeah.
And I went there and someone was like, hey, is read along worth getting for people that have it? I tried to post in the Discord, but no one responded to me. And I was like, that's weird that someone would ask a question about the Patreon and we wouldn't answer it.
Right.
And so I searched for their username, and they did. It was months ago.
Oh, no.
And they were just like, hey, can anyone tell me, like, is read along worth getting? Or, like, is there a way for me to just listen to, like, one episode to see if I want to, like, spend $10 on it or whatever?
Right.
And the answer is
Somehow
not
got
really. I don't really have a way to do that. We have thought about, because
I thought you were saying not really to is it worth it?
no, it is worth it. It's a fun show.
No, yeah, I have so much fun doing read
We
along.
have in the past tacked on one of our Patreon episodes to the end of an episode.
Mhm.
And I think it was a Talking Wizards.
Yeah.
And we should do that for a read along. Maybe tack one on.
yeah.
It was literally just like right after the end of the regular episode, it went into that,
Yeah.
But that gave me that idea. So to that person, Spokes was their name. To Spokes. Sorry about like several months ago when you asked that question in the Discord and we just fucking
Somehow
didn't
missed it.
notice.
Yeah.
We do want to thank the following patrons for all the money. Mark Schwickendie Offmeyer,
And a winner is me,
the half-minute hero.
Mike Rotondo,
Norman,
James Taylor,
Dave Nelson,
Matt Kovacs,
Jerry Foss,
and Lil Bunny Fufu 89.
and Charlie Daniels.
What?
He's a patron of ours.
I don't have
We're
that.
very famous, Saturn.
Oh, I see. From the Charlie Daniels band?
That's the one. Yeah, how'd you know?
I didn't.
Have you heard of him?
No.
I don't think
That's how
Charlie
I knew the name of
Daniels
that band off the top of my
is
head.
still with us anymore.
I don't think he is.
I
No.
don't think he is. I don't know why that's the name that popped into my head. I was like, say a famous name, that'll be funny. And my brain's like, celebrities. Justin Bieber, Charlie Daniels. That's all I got. Pick one.
Two.
Those are the
only two.
Those are the only two celebrities you know at 12:45 in the morning. You got
The highest selling musician of all time. Charlie Daniels.
in my head, I was just like, I can think of more celebrities, and I thought Bob Newhart and Hawkeye. This is the only other two.
So there's a guy at my office. He's real young. He's got to be like 22, 23 years old.
Yeah.
And he recently discovered like the old sitcom channels on Pluto and shit.
Oh yeah.
And he comes into the office the other day and he's trying to be real excited about it because he's like, "Hey, you know old TV, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Because like you were alive then." I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
He's like, "Did you know that the old Elf from the movie Elf used to have a TV show?" And I'm like, do you mean Bob Newhart?" And he's like, "Yeah."
The old elf. I completely forgot that was Bob Newhart.
It was Bob Newhart. And I was like, yeah, I do remember that. I remember watching Newhart. It's a good one.
Yep. That one was before me. I watched for whatever reason. I grew up in the 90s, so we didn't get reruns of 80s TV. It was too new.
Yeah.
I watched a ton of 60s and 70s TV. So
Yeah, those are good too.
I missed a lot of 80s stuff.
Yeah, it's a shame.
That was pretty important.
Newhart's
I think we should
great.
probably end the show. It's the middle of the night. We're just talking about TV now. Thank you for listening to the show. We'll be back next week. And as always, let us cling together.